Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. This is round number 2 of the season, coming to you today from Cadwell Park. My name is Maunz. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Randall McGrew, and in the virtual production hall we have Joshua Wilkie. We're ready to get the second half of this season underway, this time at Cadwell. Cadwell's one of the newest tracks on iRacing, but it is a fabulous circuit nonetheless. Despite being about as narrow as a hallway in a one-star hotel, it has a lot of character and challenge baked into it. I expect a lot of these Formula Ford cars to be turned into makeshift lawnmowers by the end of this race. So Randall, what do you expect out of this race here at Cadwell Park?
I expect a lot of action. It's going to be a little bit difficult to pass here, but there are some places for good passing opportunities. But mostly, I think what's going to happen is attrition. If you can keep the nose of this car clean, you're going to have a really good chance for a good finish today. We jump on board with Ian Joyner. Coming through the last corner of this track, we're going to go on board with him for a lap. Currently, provisionally on the pole position. See him carrying at speed about 110 miles an hour as he approaches turn 1. This is mostly flat for the faster drivers. I see some of the slower drivers in practice kind of lift off that, and then through turn 2 and turn 3, known as the Charlies. So a bit of a dab of brake as you come through turn 3, and then look at that hill. Look at the elevation change. They got to go uphill, run it up the park straight. They call the straight. Doesn't look very straight to me, but the run up to turn 4, you're going to get yourself over to the left-hand side of the track. Open up that entry as much as possible. You're going to brake there about the one board, get that car woed up, and then through Chris Curve turn 5, pretty easily flat, but you're really going to be struggling with understeer. Going to get that car over to the left and then set up for the gooseneck, which is a downhill chicane where the big transition happens, and then this big run downhill. He's going to run off track down the hill towards turn 8. Going to get heavy onto the brakes, so you can use a little bit of extra brake. Then coming up to turns 9 and 10, you're going to get over to the right-hand side of the track for 11 and 12, a big uphill chicane called the Mountain. This is a big climb afterwards, and then we make our way to one of the trickier sections, the Hall Bends. You really need to abuse these curbs on the apexes and pay no attention to those bollards. They're not really real, and then get a good run through the hairpin, turn 17, open up the entry to the final corner to get on that throttle as early as possible and set your lap time around Cadwell Park.
And this is not going to be the first time that the drivers in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors Series have driven around here. It's been used just in the Weekend Warriors world quite a lot as of late. There was a race with the Formula Fords here last season that rather heavily rain-soaked affair. Was one of the most attrition-packed races I've ever seen in my entire time covering the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors Series. The Formula Vs actually ran here. I believe they ran here earlier on this season here for Season 1 of 2025. And they also ran it for the Week 14, the special edition Week 14 V runoffs right towards the end of 2024. But this track, a wonderful ride, 18 corners in all around this track, and a whole lot of elevation change to talk about as well. As you mentioned there, Randall, Ian Joyner, currently your provisional pole sitter, 127.153. And I think while we have a little bit of time left in this qualifying session, we should probably briefly touch on the championship point situations, because in our 3 classes, it has been a rather exciting season to follow all throughout, with a lot of different winners, some upset performances, and some also fantastic drives as well. So we'll start with Spec 1, where Ian Joyner has been the dominant force thus far, 103 points in front of Jason Green. He has 4 wins, including a frankly brilliant drive at Thruxton a couple of weeks ago, where he essentially went from last to first. Jason Green, as I mentioned a couple of moments ago, slotted in P2 with Kevin Adrian rounding out your top 3 in the Spec 1 category. Only 4 points between Adrian McConnell as well, so some brilliant battles to talk about all throughout that class. Going to move on now to Spec 2, where we've had another driver with quite a couple wins this season. However, Spec 2, usually the class that's a bit harder to pin down. You can get a bunch of wins, but with some inconsistency, it can really wreck your chances. Jeff Wubker, he's yet to grab a victory thus far this season in the Spec 2 category, but he still leads the point standings. Only, 6 in front of Boris Espin in P2. Guido Marzuki going around at your top 3 in the Spec 2 category, but some rather close points battles here. Chris Montgomery and Jeff Jacobson, who both have multiple wins this season, tied at 245 points. So a really compelling class to follow there. We're going to take a brief look at Masters, where York Monty is up there quite significantly in front of Antonio Reese in P2. John Thompson, Jim Brewster, though, only separated by 1 point. That's a quick look at the point situation. We're at the end of this qualifying session here, and this is going to be a heck of a lot of fun. Randall dealing with some slight technical issues here at the present moment, so we'll hope to get him back into the commentary booth in the not too far off future. We'll say as well, and beautiful timing for this to happen. If anyone hasn't been able to tell from my slightly gravelly and slightly hoarse voice that I've been speaking with thus far on this broadcast, I am ever so slightly under the weather, so this is going to be a real fun day of broadcasting. Never mind the fact I've got like 3 hours and 40 minutes of broadcasting to do with a different company that we will not mention my name tomorrow. And as we see Kevin Adrian take the leap of faith on the outside of turn number 1, the checkered flag is out in this qualifying session, and it looks like it's going to be Joyner, the fastest qualifier, improving on his time to go to 127.151. Edward Buchanan currently slotted in P2. Looking at the other classes, Richard Harwood, the top qualifier in Spec 2, and Jörg Mani, the fastest of the Masters drivers. So as we get these issues taken care of, Randall, have you come back to the land of the living? Welcome back, my friend.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Suddenly just lost internet. So a 4X on the ISP, I'm guessing somewhere in town, and but we're back now seemingly, though things are still trying to reload on my side.
Yeah, so we'll I'll give you a little bit of time before then, so maybe a quick call to the internet company. The power of a verbal threat can do many things, and believe me, I have been there and done that. I'll tell you what, gonna share a good internet story. When I got my current broadcaster setup down, which by the time I did this back in early 2021, late 2021, I should say, wasn't even a broadcaster setup. I had possibly the slowest internet I've ever seen in a fully functional household. I think I got 5 megabytes per second download and upload. So believe me, Randall, I've been there and done that with those internet issues. Those are not as fun as a party at Donner's house. And to those who don't get that reference, you may need to look at some Wikipedia articles after this broadcast wraps up. But here's the starting grid before I talk about any more very sad stories from America's colonization era back in the 1800s. Oh boy, Ian Joyner going to be starting this race from the pole. Edward Buchanan going to join him on the front row. We have Daniel Tufts in 3rd, Jason Green in 4th. Michael McConnell will start this race in 5th. Richard Harwood in P6. Tortolo will start this race in 7th. Then we have Soren Garrett in P8. Juan Garcia in the number 32 car will start this race in 9th. And Jörg Mani is going to round out your top 10. Randall, have we got you back?
Yes, in 11th is Mark Smith, and starting alongside him, Kevin Adrian in 12th place. Then in 13th position, we have Trenton Kramer starting next to Guido Marzucci. 15th, we'll see Bill Walker. 16th, Antonio Reese in that Masters Division entry. 17th, Andrew Love with Boris Espin in 18th. The 10th row will have Glenn Wolosky starting alongside Brad Cathcart.
And looking through the rest of the drivers that we've got in the field, we've got Daniel Verone, the PA native in the 272 car, the Spec 2 man, going to be starting this race in 21st. Peter True going to start alongside in 22nd. Stevie Ray, series admin himself for the brand new, newly formed Slow Motion Racing. You'll definitely be hearing a lot about that in the not too distant future here on SMB. He's going to be starting this race in 23rd. John Toms going to join him on that 12th row. We've got Daniel Salmon in 25th, Russell Tucker in 26th, Jeff Lubker, the Spec 2 championship points leader in P27, Paul Jackson in 28th, Adam Bradshaw in 29th, George Balla in 30th, Jason Grider and Chris Walker starting this race in 31st and 32nd, going to round out your grid here at Cadwell Park. I will note the fact there's only 29 drivers on the starting grid and at the start of this formation lap, so the rest of them going to be starting from the pits. The pits, which are certainly going to be a big factor in this 40-minute race we have coming up.
Absolutely. A little bit of a tricky pit entry, but with these cars, they should be able to fit in there nice and easily. Just got to make sure you get the car woed up in time, though you do want to push that pit entry to get as much time as possible, or to save as much time as possible. It's a very short pit lane, so a lot of shared pit stalls here in the sim. The total drive-through delta is not going to be very big, so having a good pit entry and a fast stop is going to be absolutely key here to make you lose as little time as possible. You're not going to be able to gain as much in a pit stop here as you would in other places.
Yeah, so we got to think about the pit stops. We have a lot to think about come time for this race, considering that we are now set to get the second half of this season 1 of 2025 underway. Got to start thinking about how these drivers are going to tackle the final few races in terms of the championship and how exactly these drivers are going to contest the final half of this season. Are they going to be a bit more aggressive? Are they going to try and conserve their championship points lead as best as they can? Are they going to look to try and grow it? Who knows? We've got a fantastic slot of races to look forward to throughout the rest of the season, though. Cadwell Park, Okayama, the Saxon Ring. We've also got Knock Hills, Circuit Zolder, and VIR bringing this season to a close. And you can catch all of the action every single Sunday here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. And to all you tuning into this broadcast, if you haven't done it already, which I beat this drum quite a lot, so I'd be shocked if some of you haven't, happy to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. My personal goal here at Slow Motion Broadcasting, as a loudmouth who is on here quite often, sometimes probably too often, as people bash their eardrums in, I think that SMB should break 1,500 subscribers this year. We've got 873, so we still got 11 months left to go this year. That would be pretty dang awesome if I do say so myself. But Randall, as we enter the final stages of this formation lap, what's the main thing that you're going to be keeping in mind coming into this race?
Survive this first lap. Turns 1 through 3 are going to be absolute mayhem, especially if you're in the mid-pack and further back. You really need to make sure that you can find a spot to slot in and survive that first lap. In order to have a good finish, you have to finish. So get it all shook out. Once they make the run up park straight, they're going to have a lot more opportunity to get into single file and start working their way into a good, comfortable position to maybe start moving up the field. But before then, you really have to survive.
Finish first you have to finish, and that is going to be a saying that will be echoing through these drivers' minds in this 40-minute race that we have coming up. That pace car making the hard turn to come down pit lane. The field now in the hands of our pole sitter, Ian Joyner. The green flag is out, and the drivers are on their way. And it's a rather convincing start from Joyner. He's going to be leading them comfortably, heading off into turn number 1. Look at the drivers going side by side, nearly 3 and 4 wide, a little bit farther in the back. Through turn number 1, he got a whole lot of grass runoff, but any sort of contact in this high-speed section of the circuit can end in absolute catastrophe, as it does in the midfield. Big crash heading through there. Looks like Ian Joyner, Antonio Reese getting a piece of that action as well. My apologies, that wasn't Ian Joyner, our leader. That was Jurg Mani who was involved in that action as well. Paul Jackson, you can see him picking off some cars that are trying to get their bearings straight as a result of that drama. It was clean until it suddenly wasn't.
And that's the way it often is around here. It suddenly develops like that. It looks like there was minimal collateral damage from those not directly involved in the incident. So everybody doing a good job of getting through that incident without getting collected so much. But another bad incident for Jurg Mani, gonna put him back early. And we see another incident here in the gooseneck. Who is that? We see Bill Walker going off. Peter True possibly involved in that. Yeah, Peter True, he's still having trouble getting that going. So some early troubles here for a few drivers. Going to put them on the back foot. They're going to have a lot of ground to make up.
Yeah, I think Russell Telker may have gotten a piece of that action as well. Looking through 24 cars still out there on the racetrack. And hey, we haven't completed the first lap, so this has been a rather hectic start. 29 cars took to the racetrack for the drop of the green flag. Mark Smith, Antonio Reese, Bill Walker, Jeff Wubker, Russell Telker, the retirements thus far, and a few of them. They're still in the pits. Others, though, have just decided to call it a day here from the Formula Ford race and switch their attention to the Spec Racer Fords we'll be seeing later on today. Holy cow. Daniel Verone, we're riding on board with him, running in 22nd as it stands currently. And I will say, lots of drivers dropping back because of the drama, but one driver who's a man on a mission is Daniel Salmon. He's ranking. Oh, that's a big off-track moment for Bradshaw heading through turn number 1. Whereas I was talking about the hard charger of Salmon, Bradshaw hardly charging around after that off-track moment through 1.
You see Daniel Tufts here in second place. Ian Jordan already opened up a 1.2 second gap ahead, so Daniel Tufts needs to get a move on. Edward Buchanan right behind him. We watched Edward in qualifying right at the his last lap in qualifying. He was able to greatly improve his time, so look for him to kind of come alive with after about 10 minutes in this race. It seems like it takes him a few laps to get the car under him, get the tires where he wants them to be, but after that he seems to gain a lot of pace. So Joyner with the early pace, Buchanan maybe with a later race pace, So we'll see how that plays out. Right now, he's got Daniel Tufts in front of him. He might be doing a little bit of fuel saving here, using that slipstream where it's available to kind of pull him along. So maybe get a quicker pit stop out of that car and try to gain some position that way, but he doesn't want to let Joyner pull away too much.
Yeah, just want to keep tabs with the driver of the number 8 car, and considering that Tufts last time by just set the fastest lap of the race at 128.595, certainly trying to do that to the best of his abilities. This 3-car pack that we've got at the front of the field. Some drivers certainly looking to impress. I mean, Ian Joyner, he's on the prowl for a championship here this season. It's been the story of dominance for another Brit of James Berry, as we see side-by-side racing with Tortullo and Michael McConnell heading down the straightaway into turn number 4. Tullo going to get the move done to make his way up into P4 even before they thought about hitting the brakes into turn number 4. See what I did there? That was terrible. I apologize. But at the front of the field, you've got 3 drivers who have had some rather different seasons. Joyner, he's been fast, obviously. You know, he's leading the championship by quite a comfy margin. He was really the championship favorite coming into the season, as certainly proving that to be the true case. You've got Daniel Tufts right behind, who's been rather quick, and Edward Buchanan, who I believe has only joined the series over the past couple of races, certainly proved himself to be a quick contender as he finds himself third in the early stages of this race. Looking at our current Spec 2 leader right now, here's Richard Harwood in the 777 car. This has been a pretty good race for him. Finds himself in a massive pack of the top 10, consisting primarily of Spec 1 drivers, but the Spec 2 man putting on a really good drive at the moment in the 777.
Yeah, we see him. I'm not sure if he actually is Spec 2 or not. We're seeing him displayed as Spec 1 on the timing tower, but he definitely has the number in the range of Spec 2, so we'll have to get some clarification there. It looks like he has Spec 1 speed to me, though, hanging out in 6th place in a very tough crowd. You have to look all the way back to 11th before you see any other division in the form of Jörg Manny, who managed to weather that incident. Looks like he didn't lose too much time. It probably doesn't have too much damage, so still leading the way for the Masters. Whereas we're on board with Jason Green. Jason trying to run down Harwood here, but doesn't seem to be making up too much ground. It seems like this top 10 is pretty settled in right now, trying to just maintain what they got. As we see Jeff Wubker there on the inside, he is a lap down, so he's just trying to get out of the way of these faster drivers. But overall, this top 10 looking pretty tame.
Yeah, it is looking rather tame as it stands at the moment. These drivers probably seeing that chaos in the mid-pack at the very start of this race, and at this point thinking like, hey, there's no point getting as caught up in the drama as those drivers did. Let me just keep it clean. And here's a moment here involving Bill Walker. Let's follow him. You can see him picking his way through the smoke and all that drama and chaos heading through the corner. Ian Joyner, not Ian Joyner, I keep mixing up Ian Joyner and Jörg Manny. They've been battling for wins thus far this season, which is really saying something in the case of Manny, the Masters competitor. But nope, that was Jörg Manny, and I gotta say, Manny, incredibly lucky to get through that chaos with probably not even a paint chip on that race car.
Yeah, it looks like from that view with Kevin Adrian that we just saw, that really started with the number 2 car, and that would be Mark Smith. So it looked like the 2 car just got a little bit wide out there in the grass, brought the rear end around, and it just started absolute mayhem. So we'll see here from on board with Mark, we see he gets out there towards the grass. That rear tire actually gets out there, causes the car to come around, and then it's just a pure game of chaos and avoidance from there for the rest of the drivers. So an unfortunate situation. Luckily, not an incident that the stewards will have much interest in. It was just an error from the driver, and unfortunately, it was right in traffic.
When it comes to lap 1, when it comes to the lap 1 drama that you see around a track like this, I mean, I mentioned in my open how most of this racetrack is about as narrow as a 1-star hotel room hallway. But when it comes to lap 1 around here, go into it with about as much confusion and mystery as you can possibly get. Really lap 1 around Cadwell Park, it's like following Kanye West's Twitter account. You never really know what you're going to get or what emotions you're going to be feeling at the end of it, but you know it's going to be an experience for sure. These racers at the front of the field, they negotiate lap 1 as cleanly as they could. Ian Joyner, though, having negotiated with some lap traffic very early on. That right there in front of him is a 319 car. I believe that's Bill Walker. So the lap traffic already playing a factor in this race, and let's see Joyner dispatch of that car. After that, he has to wait quite a while to find Kevin Adrian, the number 10 car, who has rejoined this race even despite breaking a wheel off. He's all the way down to turn number 4, though. So Ian Joyner not having to worry about lap traffic too much as it stands at the moment, but come time for probably about 7 minutes left in this race. That may be a huge factor in deciding who's going to come out on top.
Yeah, you enjoy that lap traffic battle there with Bill Walker caused him 3/4 to a whole second of lap time. Before that, the lap previous to that, he claimed the fastest lap of the race with a 1:27.690. So he had really picked up the pace once Daniel Tuff started breathing down his neck. Then he encountered Bill Walker and he lost a lot of time, so he was only able to pull a 27.848 after having to deal with that traffic. So we'll see what his pace does this time around. We'll see if it continues into the 27s the way he ran before encountering that traffic. And we'll see if Tufts is able to get around Bill Walker a little bit easier.
And let's see how these drivers negotiate more and more traffic as this race goes on. We'll note that Richard Harwood still running at the lead in the Spec 2 category, running in 6th overall as it stands at the present moment. And lots of drama has already befallen many competitors in this race. Tufts and Buchanan, though, they may start to have a side-by-side fight of their own. You can see them separated by about a car length, hang their way through the final corner of turn number 18. And considering that they don't have any traffic to deal with as Bill Walker has dropped down, you can see the drivers right towards the tail end of the top 10 currently dealing with him farther down the start-finish straightaway. Tufts and Buchanan may start to battle, and if they do, it's definitely going to bring this man Tortullo into the play as well.
I was just going to mention Tortullo very quietly creeping up on 3rd place here and closing pretty quickly. So he's going to be involved in this. We could have a 3-way fight for 2nd place once Tor gets there, but he's definitely on the move. He's making his way up there, and the gap is getting smaller and smaller by the corner. Meanwhile, ahead, Ian Joyner was definitely able to get back into the 27s last lap with a 27.841. So he found the pace again once he got clear of that traffic. So don't let him run away too much, because that gap just keeps getting bigger. It's up to 3 seconds now.
And let's see how this battle is going to shake up. I think Joyner entering the stage of the race where he's really starting to get in the zone, get into a groove. Whatever sort of simile you want to use to describe it, he is starting to pull away from this pack. But this pack right behind is now a 3-car fight. You've got Tufts, Buchanan, and Tullo covered by about a half a second, hang their way through this challenging end to the lap. Turns number 13, 14, 15, 16, finally into the hairpin at turn number 17. Every single time I drive around there, I think of my autocross days running through a cone slalom. That's exactly what it feels in my view. It's just an endless assault on the tires on these race cars.
Absolutely. And if you look at the track map, they call turn 17 the hairpin, and from a track map perspective, it doesn't look like much of a hairpin, but I challenge anybody to take any car. You could take a shopping cart through turn 17 and it's going to feel like a hairpin.
Yeah, that section, holy, I mean, the amount of times that I've had to go into the little like asphalt runoff patch, can't even call it any sort of runoff area, the small little asphalt patch on the outside, turn number 11, just to get looped around and slam into the safety truck that's parked there as well. The amount of times I've had to do that on my time on iRacing driving around this track would really beg or believe. I don't know, maybe I'm just a really bad driver. Look at this, some great drivers battling hard. That's Harwood getting the moves on Michael McConnell. McConnell getting shoved off the track coming out of turn number 4. That's going to allow Juan Garcia in the number 32 car to try and get moved on the number 62 car. They're now side by side through the fast chicane of turn number 6 and 7 down the hill off it to turn 8, which on paper would be a good overtaking opportunity. It's a heavy braking zone, but that corner is so unbelievably challenging considering how steep the downhill descent is into it.
And if you're able to give the business to the likes of Michael McConnell, I'm going to go ahead and say it. This is a Spec 1 driver. I don't care what the number is. This guy is definitely Spec 1. The pace he's got, being able to give McConnell the business, like I said, it really put McConnell on the back foot. He had to recover the car, make sure it didn't go off track, and he was instantly swarmed by the drivers behind him, the likes of Juan Garcia, Soren Gerritsen, and possibly even Jason Green. Looks like McConnell's got it back under control and probably seeing a little bit of red. We're going to take a look at the replay here. See this pass? There was a little bit of contact here coming into turn 4. Harwood up the inside, definitely has position, going to take a pretty tight entry, and looks like we just missed the contact, but it did cause McConnell to run off track just slightly, probably not enough to pick up the official off track, but it did make him back out of it and give up a little bit of time, and he felt a lot of pressure from drivers behind, got his position back, and now he's trying to track down Harwood once again.
We're going to take a look at another angle of this drama involving McConnell in the number 62 car, the Furball racing car, and let's see what happened here. Yeah, small. It was a love tap more than anything else. Just left rear to right front, and that's gonna ping him off the track, and actually allowing Harwood to break away from that pack behind as well, as it's a pretty significant margin. But here we go, side by side racing involving Tolo and Tufts. Buchanan got the move done to slip his way up into P2. Meanwhile, Tufts now finds himself at the podium. Tolo getting that move done.
You see Tufts with a little bit of a wheel hop there coming over that crest after the chicane, and it's pretty easy to do in any car. Doesn't really affect the drive too much, and it won't have a big effect on the steering either. So it looks really cool, but you probably don't notice it much in the sim. Now, if you're in a real car, you would 100% be feeling that as the chassis would bottom out after landing again, but it doesn't seem to have a huge effect in the sim. As we mentioned, Edward Buchanan's now made his way up to second, so he was able to get around Tufts. So Tufts looks like he's struggling for pace here early on in the race. We're just 13.5 minutes in, closing in on that halfway point. So maybe he's overdriven those tires a little bit, possibly had a little bit of an incident, and he's trying to recover. We see him now putting the pressure back on Tulo to try to get this spot back into turn 4, but not going to go for the move now.
Tolo remaining in P3 as it stands at the moment. Daniel Tufts, I gotta wonder what sort of pace fall off has befallen the driver of the number 34 car. You bring up a very good point there in terms of the pace that he is showing at some point versus the pace that he is showing now. You can just see, as he runs mega wide coming at turn number 6, got some grass on the tires as well, and locking up into turn number 8. He is really struggling in that number 34 car. That car went from looking like it was on rails to looking like a dog running on a freshly polished wood floor. So things not going the way of Tufts as this race encroaches on that 15-minute mark.
We're going to get another look at this incident. He's coming through the gooseneck here. He's going to get on the curb fine. He looks like he's carrying a little bit too much speed through there. Yep, and it pushes him right off into the grass. And then he can't get onto you don't want to get onto the brakes until you get back onto the pavement. So he does get back over, but then his wheels are covered in grass. So we see it instantly lock up. And then he has to get it under control, loses a handful of time, and is now falling off the back of Tulo. So he's really struggling for pace now. He needs to kind of dial it back a little bit. Sometimes slow is smooth, smooth is fast, and that was a 4-wheel drift right there. So he is not backing down one bit.
Yeah, Daniel Tufts still pushing it in that number 34 car, pushing that limit, pushing the envelope for sure. And let's see, is it going to result in him finding a monumental level of pace, or is it going to result in him taking a one-way trip into the barrier? Who knows? Let's wait and find out. We still got a lot of time left to go in this race. Haven't even hit the halfway mark, but we are certainly in that pit stop window, as proven by some of the drivers a little bit farther in the back, maybe considering a run into the pits. I was just going to say that Stevie Ray, series admin, and SMB boss was one of them. However, he's completely out of the race, so you can play me like a fiddle there. That was incorrect. My apologies, as we may have some stuff going on all throughout this field. And look at that, I just saw that in the corner of my eye. Trent Kramer with a beautiful drift heading through turn number 8. That's not going to cause him to gain any time, but holy cow, I saw that right in the back of shot. I don't know if you did as well, Randall. So Trent Kramer driving that number 20 car as if he has stones for wheels.
We see these two drivers here, Soren Garrett and Michael McConnell, contesting for 6th position right now. These two drivers often seem to find each other in these races. So familiar dance partners are back together right now. We'll see if Soren's able to get the move done on Michael McConnell. They are kind of tracking down Harwood a little bit. That gap has been pretty static the past few laps. We'll see if McConnell can maybe use this pressure to his advantage and get the let out and try to get back up to Harwood after that little bit of a bump and run. Nothing too dirty here. We do have one driver who's coming in for pit service already. That is Daniel Varon, and he was stopped for 18.2 seconds. We'll see if that's a good watermark or not as we get more traffic in the pit lane. Right now, looking back from McConnell, we see Garrett's doesn't seem too interested in racing. He's just kind of keeping the pressure on McConnell, ready to be there in case there's a mistake. But trying to just kind of will McConnell on to close that gap up to Harwood. But the gap is getting a little bit bigger as we watch this race. And speaking of gaps, that gap at the front of the field up to 4.2 seconds nearly. And Joyner has set another fast lap time of a 27.557. And his last lap time was a 27.562, so he is on a tear right now.
That he absolutely is. Joyner trying to stake his claim and kick this second half of the season as well as he did for the first. He won the opening race of this season and looking for another win to add onto his record here for season 1 of 2025. Joyner has been incredibly quick all throughout this season, certainly proving that here at Cadwell Park. Ooh, dear Lord, that was a beautiful slide. Not sure who that was heading through the slalom section towards the end of this lap, but whoever that was a beautifully held slide. But I do want to mention the fact that as we kind of saw one season ago, albeit with very heavy rain playing a factor in that, attrition yet again being a big deciding factor in this race. Of the 32 starters, of the 32 drivers that were classified in this race, only 23 are out there on the racetrack as it stands at the present moment. Some of those drivers a little bit farther towards the back, as indicated by blue. They are either already one lap down or closing in on being one lap down. So this has been a race of attrition, and I can't necessarily say I'm surprised by that, Randall.
Not at all. And this is a pretty technical track too for something of its size. So we're seeing a lot of separation between drivers. We're seeing, if you look at the leaderboard, we see all red at the top, and then we have to look back and past the top 10 in order to see anybody in Spec 2. So we take a look at some of the battles going on, and yeah, so the technical nature of this track is really going to separate the drivers out by skill level. So not a big surprise that we see a lot of gaps around here, and the fact that the leader is able to pull off the way he did just speaks volumes. So just a little bit of difference in pace makes a huge difference on the track.
Yeah, it makes a mighty difference in a situation like this. We got a replay going on right now to see that incident with Stevie Ray. That was heading off into to turn number 11 and 12, that chicane, which is oh so tricky to try and get right the exit of that as well. Pretty sure the exit of that chicane is nestled very deep into the worst parts of my brain, as there you can see the contact being made and sends of both of them off the track. Stevie out of it, and not sure who the other car was involved in that drama, but either way, it's an incident heading off into turn number 12. Going to take two good race cars out of it here at Cadwell Park. But we're quickly approaching the halfway mark as we take a look at another replay of an incident involving Brad Cathcart in the 905 car. And, let's see, this heading into turn number 6 and 7 right now. A little bit wide through there. He's going to run a little bit wide, and just snapping it. This is control and gets it off the track. Very well done from Brad Cathcart to get off the track as quickly as he possibly could as a result of all that, because that is a absolutely horrendous position to be in if you're in one of these race cars.
Absolutely. Just carried too much speed through the gooseneck. We've seen it from a few other drivers. He was able to wrangle it and not run wide, but it caused him to spin coming down the hill. And like you said, it was able to back off the track without collecting any other drivers. So good for him to see Jörg Manny locking it up, coming into the hairpin. Not going to do a lot of damage to those tires. Not going to overheat them too much. A little inside lockup like that. We do see Soren Garrett's going to dip into the pit lane from behind Michael McConnell, come in for service. We'll see how long he's stopped. Right now, he's a lone car on pit lane. So pit lane going to start seeing a bit more action at 21 minutes into this race. And we'll see them coming in the next 4 or 5 laps. We'll see the bulk of the field come through.
No, I was just going to say that a couple of moments ago, Randall, talking about the fact that we were at the halfway mark and we were probably going to see some pit stops begin to happen. And Soren Garrett's in the number 21 KGL sim racing car. Looks like he's going to be the first to bite the bullet, and let's see how it goes for him. Glenn Wololski in the number 7 car going to join him in the pits as well. A very short run down pit lane here at Cadwell Park. I'm a little bit surprised that iRacing even allows 32 cars to be registered for a race like this, but hey, won't catch us complaining. This race has been awesome thus far. We still got a whole lot of time left to go in this race, and I'm going to mention, as we are not necessarily in a lull in this race before any sort of chaos happens to go on, I will mention the fact that Salmon is still the hard charger, currently up 12 spots from where he started in this race, running at 13th as it stands currently. But Paul Jackson, running about 5 seconds back and 5 positions back in P18, I should say, may be in the running for that, as well as we see a car go off the track heading through the S's. Not entirely sure who that was. That may, unless I'm very much mistaken, may have been Mark Smith, potentially in the number 2 car. Either way, a car going off and not really affecting the 2 that we're riding on board with.
We're seeing this threesome right here, led by Jörg Manny, feeling the pressure from Jason Green. You see faded there across to Jason's dashboard. It's fine, and it's a good way to remind yourself it's gonna be okay. Gonna have a good race. It's fine. Just deal with it. Jason Green trying to deal with Jürgen Manny. He's got Trenton Kramer right on his rear bumper. Well, these cars don't have bumpers. He's right there on his gearbox. It looks like Kramer has the better pace through sector 1, and it's going to be a true again this lap, and looks like Green a little bit faster through sector 2, so it kind of evens out. Nobody really able to make any ground on anybody else in this group, just kind of clicking off laps, and we'll see how it shakes out after they come into the pit lane. Soren Garrett came into the pit lane. He was only stopped for 13.6 seconds, and total transit time was 12 seconds longer than that. So you have a 12-second delta just for driving through, and then however long your stop is added to that. Right now, Daniel Salmon, the hard charger, in the pit lane, and he's stopped for much longer than the 14 seconds or 13.6 seconds. He's in there for 23 seconds stop. And Glenn Woloski also came in for service, and he was also stopped for about 23.3 seconds. So we're seeing a pretty wide variety of stop times so far.
And that right there was Ian Joyner overtaking the now lapped car of Daniel Salmon. Joyner just put an absolute clinic on the field thus far, and I will refrain from further comments at risk of jinxing him. But Salmon out and away. He's running down in... Oh, my eyes fail me at the worst possible time. Running down in 18th. There we go. Second looks the charm as we see Guido Marzuki from what we believe is a lead in the Spec 2 category come down pit lane. I will mention the fact that Richard Harwood is over 3,000 I rating, which is a criteria to differentiate between Spec 1 and Spec 2 drivers. So as it stands, unless we got any further word about whether or not he is actually a Spec 2 driver, we will consider him to be a Spec 1 racer. But Guido Marzuki coming in from the Spec 2 lead, that's going to relinquish it to Andrew Love as Marzuki now out and away. Marzuki a couple of weeks ago won in the Spec 1 category in the Formula V Weekend Warriors just a couple of weeks ago. So let's see if he'll be able to replicate that form and win here in the Spec 2 category from the Formula Fords at Cadwell.
And right now he's in a pretty nice bubble here where he doesn't have pressure from behind. He's got a lot of clean air and clean track in front of him. So he's going to be able to try to set off some quality pace laps to really close that gap as much as possible before Andrew Love comes into the pits, and try to widen that gap after Love comes out of the pits. So an ideal situation for the FART team driver here today. We'll see if he's able to parlay that into the Spec 2 win after it all shakes out. And I want to point out right now, Jürgen Manny, despite being involved or lightly involved in that lap 1 incident, rocking 7th place overall, leading the Masters division, showing his pace, flexing his muscles. The janitor is back on watch, trying to sweep up as many wins as possible.
Yeah, and we're going to bring this discussion back from the last race of the championship here at Donington Park. Up until last week, where Antonio Rees took the checkered flag, Jürgen Manny had won every single race thus far this season in the Masters category. So, gotta remind myself of the old advertisement from Mercedes saying how not everyone's perfect. Actually, no, that was Porsche. What am I saying? It was the Mercedes Sauber that was the only disruption to Porsche completely locking out the top 10. But, you know, Jürgen Manny been very fast all throughout the season. I just want to touch on another subject as well.
Green runs wide.
And, Green running wide coming out of turn number 6. That is a very sketchy moment for the driver of the 160 car. That was coming out of turn number 7. My apologies there, folks. But gotta get this quick point out after we take a look at this replay to see what happened to Jason Green in the 160 car. Tries to get moved on Jürgen Manny, heading off into the braking zone, turn number 4. Looks like he gets it done successfully. Yeah, Manny not really challenging him in that regard, just allowing Jason to go by, and yeah, maybe add some premonition to what happened a few corners later. Green licking the stamp and sending it through turn number 6, missed the apex there, sets himself up badly through turn number 7, and that spears him right off the track. So that's going to get some grass on his tires, bring some more grass onto the road, but no harm, no foul outside of that. We'll mention as well, talking about the 1-point Spec 2 leader of Guido Marzuki. Where did he go? I'm looking through right now. My eyes just... Okay, there we go. He's still running in second. So my eyes clearly failing me on this broadcast. May need to get my glasses prescription changed. But Marzuki, really fast in the entirety of the Weekend Warriors world, but he's not flamboyantly fast either. You know, he's silent but deadly in these races.
I see what you did there, and I appreciate it, and I give it my stamp of approval. As we see, Jürgen Manny is now in the pit lane. And we just saw Trenton Kramer, I think that was coming out of the pit lane. He was stopped for 14.4 seconds. Yes, that was Trenton Kramer. Jörg Manny with a slower pit time at 17.18. So he's going to lose a little bit of time in that battle, possibly that he was involved in with Jason Green and Juan Garcia, or sorry, Trenton Walker. So he definitely lost a lot of time to Trenton Walker. That's 3 seconds or 2.5 seconds. We're still waiting for Jason Green to come in to see how all this shakes out, but we can see the difference on track. That Jörg Manny can't even see right now where Trenton Kramer went. So this battle kind of getting decided on the pit lane as we see some of the leaders coming in. Daniel Tufts, Edward Buchanan, both in the pit lane. We'll see what their stops look like and how this shakes out for the lead. Going to put Richard Harwood provisionally up to third. He's not going to be there for much longer. He's going to have to come in for pits soon, and we'll see where these drivers shake out.
And let's see how things work out for them in their run down pit lane. Buchanan, McConnell still stopped. McConnell out, and actually, no, that's Buchanan out and away. McConnell still stopped in his pit stall, so let's see how long he spends. About 3 seconds less than Buchanan, so that's a very quick run for, actually, I say very quick run. That was just a very slow run through the pits for Buchanan. Very quick for McConnell in reference to Buchanan's slower time, as we've got Trent Kramer coming in from P10 overall, and Andrew Love coming in from the Spec 2 lead. So this trickle of cars coming down pit lane, and may resemble an incontinent poodle at this point in time, but the pit stops are definitely here.
Yeah, and right now the fastest pit stop is out of Soren Garrett. He was one of the first drivers to come in with a 13.65. So maybe making an earmark for him is, oh, look out, John Toms. Here comes Brad Cathcart and Jörg Manny fast down the front straightaway. He's going to be able to get up to speed in front of them, but he's going to be feeling the pressure really quick. But earmark Soren Garrett's for the Thompson Trophy for fuel management. He might be in trouble at the end of this race.
It was Ian Joyner coming into the pits from the race lead with about 10.5 minutes left on the clock. Joyner has been dominant thus far. Let's see if he hits his marks beautifully, stopping in, not in the same pit stall, in the car of Glenn Wolowski, the number 7 car. He's now out and away, so that's oh god, that's okay. That's Tortello coming in, giving me the scare of a lifetime. But there's Joyner out and away, slipping the clutch ever so slightly to make sure he minimizes the wheel spin. He's now out and away. Jason Green grabbing the race lead, albeit he's yet to come into the pits. That's a little bit disingenuous. Juan Garcia yet to come into the pits as well. He now occupies third. Tortello out and away in P4. Edward Buchanan and Richard Harwood running P5 and P6 as it stands at the moment. Daniel Tufts, he's now out and away in the number 34 car as well. So lots of shaking up at the front of the field, but nevertheless, one thing that remains the same is Joyner being in a league of his own.
Yeah, and of that lead threesome that came in there at once, Tortullo was the fastest of them with a 15.5 second, further cementing my idea that Soren Garrett might be struggling with fuel at the end of this race. Jason Green able to stretch it out a bit more, is going to get a lap-led bonus point. We see there Glenn Wolowski getting a little bit off track there, mowing some grass there behind Jason Green. We'll see if Jason decides to come in this lap or if he's going to stretch it even another lap. But I suspect that he's going to be in and Juan Garcia both this lap, and that'll be pretty much the rest of, yeah, that'll be the rest of the drivers. They're the only two that haven't pit yet. We see Brad Cathcart just leaving pit lane. John Toms is in there right now.
There is so much grass around this track that I would make a joke, but I don't think I can say it here on SMB. Green now holding on to the race lead. He's now coming in, though, so that's going to relinquish it back to Ian Joyner in the number 8 car. And there we see him stopping in his pit stall. Gotta say, I mean, looking at that, that's what, like 8 pit stalls around here. So the fact we got 32 cars driving around this track is rather insane. This track having a very much so homegrown feel. It just feels like a racetrack they'd see in someone's backyard. I mean, there is a house there as well. So it's an odd feeling at Cadwell, but I can't necessarily say that I don't like it. It's a fun track to drive around, albeit, you know, there's a very good reason why I'm behind a microphone instead of behind the wheel. It's fun for me, but I'm also slower than Ice Cube falling down off a roof of a house. So at this point, I'm thinking that I like this track, and I probably shouldn't drive it and ruin it for myself.
And we see we have another couple of drivers come in, and we see that Jason Green came in, and he was stopped for only 12.07 seconds with a total stop time of 12.3. So that puts his transit time at just shy of 25 seconds. That's a pretty quick pit stop. So maybe a new challenger has appeared for the Thompson Trophy for fuel management. Jason Green might be seeing himself saved for the rest of this race, with Andrew Love currently in the pit lane. And this does not seem scheduled. I think he's been stopped for quite a while now. Yeah, he's been here for 40 seconds. Possibly a penalty? No, we're going to see. He had an incident here on track. We're coming through the chicane and up the mountain, and he gets the curve there. Looks fine. Looks fine. A little bit of a hop and nothing. So now he's coming through the bends and doesn't get it wrong through the, yeah, he's get just a little too much of that curve with the rear wheel. It sends the rear end around. He tries to catch it and ends up right there at the scene of the accident and has to tow back the pit lane. Gonna get that car repaired and rolling again, but he had a solid finish in Spec 2 going, and now he's gonna be dropped down. He's only gonna lose a couple spots in Spec 2 overall, but he was definitely keen to at least get a second place.
Yeah, still going to be unfortunate nevertheless, and with not a lot of time left to go in this race, just about 6.5 minutes left to be a bit more precise. It's looking good for Marzuki as he's leading it in the Spec 2 category right now. Also looking very good for Ian Joyner. He is still just in a race of his own at this point in time. I think I've asked him a couple of times thus far this season whether or not he decides to check his email after the 25-minute mark, and this is certainly a performance very fitting for a driver like Ian Joyner. He was really the only driver really the only driver in this series to challenge James Berry consistently throughout season 4 of 2024, and that's saying something considering that Berry is a 2-time reigning champion here from the Formula 4 Weekend Warriors. Berry hasn't made his appearance though, and it's allowed Ian Joyner just to come in and bend everyone to his will. It has been fast from Joyner, race in and race out, and even in races where he's not taken to the starting grid and had to start all the way down in last, that didn't stop him either. So Joyner extending his lead now to 9.5 seconds, just in a race all of his own. I gotta wonder if there's nitrous in that car or something, because he is just super quick.
Yeah, we see that gap's getting closer and closer to double digits, and the real race on track for now is between Edward Buchanan and Tortulo. Tor has come just completely alive this race. He's not been super aggressive, been pretty quiet, but he's been there knocking on the door of the top 3 the entire race. Now he's firmly in 3rd place, looking to get 2nd place. Won't have enough time to make any sort of challenge against Ian Joyner. He would need a lot of time to close that gap to see him run a little bit wide there. I think we're going to need an hourglass instead of a stopwatch to measure the margin of victory at the end of this. We look back, Daniel Tufts, who was up in 2nd place at the beginning of this race, now having to deal with the likes of Richard Harwood in that 777 entry. Harwood really dialing up the pressure. We're going to see here a move that actually is going to put Tufts in front of Harwood as they come up the hill into turn 4. Turn 4 seems to be the prime passing opportunity. He's going to get the move done well before turn in. So it looks like Harwood didn't fight that very hard, saw it coming, and figured I'll just let him go and try to keep the pressure on him. Right now, still right there on his gearbox, and they're having to deal with some lap traffic in the form of Daniel Varon, who's going to jump out of the way, but he's going to find himself in a really awkward position there for Jason Green.
I will say as well, Randall, on the other point that he raised, talking about Ian Joyner's lead, what may turn into a margin of victory if he can hold on in the final 4.5 minutes, talking about how we may need an hourglass. I'll hold off on that point in a couple of moments as Mike McConnell and Jordan Garrett's dealing with some traffic heading through the final corner. No harm, no foul in that very tight section of the racetrack. But yeah, talking about hourglass, you're in luck, Randall.
He
Many
pounded
things in a
hourglass.
broadcaster's repertoire.
What can't he do?
I will say, I think I got that back in 2019 at an IKEA. It's a very goofy looking thing, and there's a lot of dust on it, so I think I may have given myself some sort of 2019 disease. I don't know. Whenever I go into a store nowadays, I feel like there's diseases all around the place. Like you go around back of a Walmart, you move a couple of boxes, and they probably have Ebola back there or something like that. But anyways, Soren Garrett, who are falling right down the number 8 car, may be a thorn in the side for McConnell in the final couple of laps of this race.
So McConnell even had a 2-second slower pit stop and retained the position against Garrett. So Garrett's having to deal with some traffic likely after his pit stop. Erased the gains that he got on pit lane, or maybe he's having to save fuel because he had such a short pit stop. But Garrett doesn't look like he's saving fuel right now. He is full attack mode. We see him looking everywhere he can for a gap to stick that nose in alongside McConnell to try to open it up. We might have to do an old can opener entry into one of these corners and just kind of get it in there and bump him a little bit to get him out of the way. It's a very tight track here. We'll see if he can get himself in position for a move into turn 4, as we just have about 2.5 minutes left in this race. So the leaders will be seeing the white flag maybe this time, and maybe the time after that. We're going to follow on with Soren Garrison. He's loses a little bit of time down the front straight and through turns 1 and 2. We see that car ahead getting a little bit smaller. If he gets a good run here, a bit of oversteer on braking, he has to correct, but he does a decent run, but he's not close enough to set up an entry for set up a move on the entry of turn 4. So he's going to close the gap up, and then he's looking, he's showing the nose. He wants McConnell to know he's there, but he's nowhere near close enough to cause McConnell to go defensive. So right now, just playing a game with him. He's running out of time, though. He's going to have to get a move done soon, or he's going to find himself stuck here behind McConnell when they cross the checkered flag.
And let's see what the game is going to be between these two. Garrett's looking to get the move done, heading off into turn number 8, not close enough, though, throwing the dummy the way of McConnell. And let's see how this battle is going to shake up. They're coming to the white flag this time by, I believe, as well, Randall. So only one more lap of racing action here from Cadwell Park. I actually look to fact check myself in that regard. Yeah, we are coming to the white this time by. Joyner on the white flag lap as Garrett's trying anything in the book to get that move done on McConnell. Nearly side by side through turn number 13 a few moments ago, but they still remain single file. Coming to the white flag now, Joyner on track for an absolutely commanding victory in that number 8 car. The I'd say Weena Sim Sport on the side. That's pretty funny, albeit I have the mental aptitude of a 5-year-old with rickets. So I think we'll hold off on that and say that Ian Joyner on track for a victory, as trying to figure out what sort of battles we've got going on here. It looks like we got one side by side with Tullo and Tufts heading, actually no, that's Buchanan and Tullo, my apologies there, folks, heading their way through turn number 4 into 5 right now. Tullo trying to hold his own on that outside line through turn number 5. Will he got hung out to dry, though, is the real question. Is he going to back out of it? He has to back out of it. No real choice. But Buchanan, that's not a good line for him. He's got a slow exit. And let's see Tullo nearly go for the move, heading off into turn number 8, but just simply not close enough. So let's see if that battle is going to heat up in the final few corners of this race. But Joyner, a couple of moments away from grabbing the checkered flag to win yet another race from this season. It will be his 5th win, unless I'm very much mistaken, and it will cement him as the championship favorite. Kicking off the second half of the season in style, rounding his way around the final corner. It's been a flawless race from Ian Joyner, and when everything is said and done, Joyner in the number 8 car going to take a commanding victory. Gonna be about 7 seconds between himself and Edward Buchanan, who is a couple of moments away from crossing the start-finish line to finish in P2. Tullo goes right at your podium in 3rd, but Joyner with a commanding drive. That is a champion's drive, just in terms of the sheer dominance, as we got a battle a little bit farther in the back for the Spec 2 win.
It looks like Eshman, Marzucci, Salmon, Cathcart all involved in this right now. Yeah, and this is a 4-way fight. This could get ugly quick. Cathcart is hoping that they start fighting earlier in the lap, hopes that there's some sort of mistake where he can gain. There's a mistake. I did it with my mind again. 2 weeks in a row, I'm able to make a move happen with my brain. You don't get this kind of coverage on other channels, I'm telling you.
Summoning it there as we see the side-by-side fighting maybe gonna continue here. Holy cow, riding on board with Brad Cathcart, the 905 car, nearly running into the back of Salmon, who nearly ran to the back of Guido Marzucchi a couple of moments ago. Boris Esmond, though, in the 213 car on track for a win in the Spec 2 category, which I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, will be his first Spec 2 win in his entire time in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors in that lovely Pennzoil 213 car. Esmond going to finish in 12th to win in the Spec 2 category. Jörg Monty took the checkered flag to winner in Masters for his 6th time this season. That was a real good finish. And talking about you being Karnak the Magnificent, Randall, the line from last week was "Sis boom ba," describe the sound made when a sheep explodes. Just redeem myself there.
Well, thankfully you didn't devolve into a series of expletives this time trying to do it, and kind of managed to pull it off. Boris Esmond with a bit of a shock victory here. We're going to see a car ahead of him, and that's that Guido Marzucchi? It is. Guido was kind of in with a shout for the Spec 2 win until that happened. That put Esmond in front of this pack. and he was able to hold onto it for the rest of the race. We'll see Marzucci running wide here at turn 7, and we've seen a lot of people have this very same issue. He was almost in a different postal code. He was so far off track there, and it ends up costing him the Spec 2 race. So congratulations to Boris Espen. We see the cars lining up. JG2 leading the way to a possible jump here at Cadwell Park.
And I am absolutely petrified as to what we're going to be seeing here in a couple of moments' time. I will be I mentioned earlier on that I am slightly sick. So if we see some sort of jump chicanery here, I am going to be, I'm probably going to be blowing out my vocal cords. So I think I will have a slightly more subdued reaction, mute myself a little bit as we see what sort of demons these drivers have up their sleeve. I think Jason Green is at gas. That or he's just assigned to, I don't know, just shut his car off or something. I don't really know what's going on at the present. Oh, we got conga line forming. That's what we've got going on. Oh God.
What is going on? Jason Green definitely was out of gas, so managed to avoid getting the Thompson Trophy for fuel management, but is unable to complete the jump. As we see them clearing that barrier pretty easily. That's a nice little setup there. So these drivers always looking for a way to have fun after the race in the weekend warriors, and it's just kind of the nature of the beast in this league. They race hard, but then they play hard afterwards.
That was genuine fear from my oh God as we were riding on board with Jason Green, and he just got annihilated. So that was true fear witnessed here on SMB. Holy cow! I think even with that, my voice is deciding that it does not want to cooperate with me today. Let's take a look at this conga line. Dun 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 dun. I gotta say, you see a conga line at Cruise and you see a conga line here at Cadwell Park, and I think both are apropos because I would never want to eat shrimp on either a Cruise or Cadwell Park's at Trek cooking facilities. And let's see, who was it that came in for the? Oh, that was Tolo coming in for the kill. Oh no.
Yeah, then we see Jason Green get taken for a ride. I was halfway concerned that maybe one of those cars had suddenly turned into Stewart, but no, Tortulo came in and kicked all that off. We see a lot of stricken drivers here on the infield of Cadwell Park, and you know, what a race. And I'm glad to see they're still having fun afterwards.
Yeah, they're doing something all right. That's for sure. And oh, there we go. Cathcart back up on his wheels. Who's that upside down? Oh, I think we should probably talk about the results before I laugh so hard I probably burst a blood vessel in my eye, because I feel like I've gotten very close to that and seeing some of the chicanery that these drivers do at the end of these Weekend Warriors races. Oh boy, that was nearly a collision with McConnell and Paul Jackson. Some very odd sections of this racetrack, I gotta say. One thing with Cadwell, and also, oh, that's still upside down. Oh, oh, Jesus Christ, that was Brad Cathcart that just ramped off the front of Jason Green. And apologies for the voice crack there. Hopefully I didn't just like blow up a chihuahua in my 10-mile radius of my house. I think we're going to swiftly and abruptly move on and talk about the results before we see some Formula Ford cars strike the moon. Ian Joyner, though, with an out-of-this-world drive to win it here at Cadwell Park. That was cheap. I apologize. Buchanan going to finish 7.5 seconds back in P2. Tortullo go round out your overall podium in third. Then we have Daniel Tufts in fourth, Richard Harwood in fifth, Jason Green in P6, Michael McConnell in seventh, Soren Garrett's in P8, Juan Garcia in ninth. Then we have Jorg Mani finishing this race in 10th, the winner in the Masters class. Trent Kramer ends up in P11, Boris Espen in P12, Guido Marzucchi finishes in 13th, Daniel Salmon in 14th, and Brad Cathcart will round out your first half of the field.
In 16th place will be John Toms, followed by Daniel Varon. Andrew Love, who was kind of looking punchy there for a few laps, coming home 18th. Paul Jackson going to be 19th. Mark Smith will round out your top 20. Jeff Wubker in 21st. Glenn Wolowski in 22nd. 23rd, we'll see the likes of the league administrator Stevie Ray. 24th, Adam Bradshaw. 25th, Kevin Adrian. 26th, Antonio Reese. He was one of the first drivers involved in that lap one incident, and the rest of these drivers will have been involved in that as well. Russell Telker in 27th. 28th, and it looks like Jason Greider there, and I can't see the rest of them. 29th will be a mystery. 29th on is currently a mystery. So If you're able to see them, Ron, you can go ahead and take over. If not, we just will never know.
I will say the final drivers in this field did not take the start, that including George Balla, the Canadian, in the number 28 car. Jason Grider ends up in 31st, and Chris Walker got round out the 32 cars that are classified at the end of this race here at Cadwell Park. A race with some rather odd and peculiar things, but some great racing as well. And we got the winner of this race, Ian Joyner, joining us in the commentary booth, and drag him in here to have a quick little chat. Ian Joyner now joining us in the broadcast booth. Now, Ian, welcome back in here. I feel like we may need to get some of your favorite snacks, considering how often you're visiting us in the commentary booth. But well done on another victory here at Cadwell Park, and talk us through the race.
Hey both. It was pretty intense, to be honest. It was, it was again fortunate that the first couple of laps were just crucial. Got a little gap, so probably looked relatively straightforward from there. Ed was putting in some really fast laps as well, so definitely kept me honest. But it was intense. I'm pretty sure Cadwell in the dry is harder than Donington in the wet, to be honest. The concentration was really difficult. I had a few pretty dodgy laps at the end, but didn't stack it. Was quite happy to pull over and stop there.
I think overall, though, it's another very good drive from you this season. I believe it's your 5th win of the season in 7 races, and pretty darn good way to kick off the second half of this Formula Ford Weekend Warriors Championship.
Yeah, I can't complain. It's all going pretty well, really. It's funny, really. You want really good races, but I think I said this last week, but you also just want to win as well sometimes as well. So it's kind of, as soon as you get that little gap, it's kind of the thrills maybe gone away a little bit, but also, having mirror watching around here wouldn't have been much fun. I know a few of the guys probably had to do that. I'm sure I couldn't have shook Ed if he'd managed to get into the draft, but just fortunate really. Had that gap and then hung on to it.
It built up that gap, and he clung onto it very well throughout that race. A rather good drive from you. And now, I feel kind of bad saying this since you are a Brit, but after spending the last 7 rounds of this championship, we are finally going abroad and heading to Okayama in 1 week's time. So what are your thoughts coming into that race?
I'd really enjoy it, actually. I have to admit, I'd forgotten that was the case. I just so used to the Formula Ford trophy calendar. It's a fun track. Great racing on it. So different. I love how the Japanese tracks look like someone kind of drew them out with a compass and a ruler. Yet most of the British tracks are, if they're not bits of airfield, just like this one. It's like a scribble in the countryside. So it's kind of a lot easier to get your head around Okayama, and way more open. So loads of drafting. Yeah, that will be close. Most people know it as well. Yeah, so it should be. Yeah, I don't think there'll be any effortless leads there.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really good race in 1 week's time. It's an iRacing staple. I'm pretty sure the first time I ever attempted to commentate on race cars in my entire iRacing broadcasting career was in a job interview with a different broadcaster, and we loaded into a Moss MX-5 session at Okayama. So it's a rather standard track on the iRacing platform, but still a fun ride nevertheless, and hope to see you back out on the racetrack in 1 week's time. Ian Joyner, thank you very much for joining us in the commentary booth, and before we let you go and celebrate, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Yeah, thanks guys. Obviously you guys, again, great to have it to watch back. Everyone in the league as well, again, I didn't see everything that happened in the field, but there didn't seem to be too much carnage that I saw, so I'm sure everyone did really well. Massive entry. I think I just heard you saying then at the stream that maybe not everyone was on the grid, but it's great to see. Shout out to Ed as well. He did a track guide, and I think he does one every week, the trophy series for that. I did watch it, so he can definitely take some credit for a little bit of pace. It's a new track to me, and it was not an easy one to learn at all. Everyone else in the league, and obviously Stevie.
Thank you as well for joining us in the commentary booth. Ian, congratulations on the win here at Cadwell Park, and excited to see you back out on the racetrack for the rest of the season.
Thanks guys, take care, speak soon.
And I think we certainly will be. Ian Joyner, thank him for joining us in the commentary booth. His 5th win on this season. He's not the most dominant driver, that going to Jurek Monty, who's unfortunately not up there in the interview waiting area. But Randall, that was I wouldn't say a textbook race. It was kind of what we expected around a track like this. Some lawn mowing for sure, some incidents, especially on lap 1, but still the same fantastic racing as we expect week in and week out here from the Formula Fords.
Absolutely. Even what feels like a club track, it would be a long club track, but it feels like a club track. Very technical, very challenging for these drivers. And once we got through the lap 1 mayhem, we'd see a lot of separation, but as always, the cream rises to the top, and we've seen it from the drop of the green flag. Ian Joyner was able to run away with this, 1 lap away from the clean sweep thanks to Jason Green during that pit cycle, but an outstanding performance from all the drivers involved today.
And some outstanding racing action as well. And speaking of, we've got some outstanding racing action day in and day out, week in and week out here only on SMB. Randall, I know this has a special place in your heart, the American Muscle Series. You're the commentator and the series admin on that. And next race of the season, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is at Long Beach. So that's going to be a real fun one. Want to give us a brief preview on that?
Yeah, we closed out one of our early seasons at Long Beach, and it was an amazing race. I expect to see an amazing race every week. No matter, you could put those guys on a test oval, and it would somehow be exciting. So AMS will be a action-packed week in and week out. And of course, I'm clearly biased, but it's the best league in iRacing.
Well, it is certainly exciting to watch, and I'll definitely be tuning in all throughout this season. I look forward to the other race next season at the iRacing Centripetal Circuit. Here's the stuff that you can expect every single Wednesday here on SMB. You've got the Ray Esports Club Racing League. That will be the action from Group Number 3 this upcoming week, with the Sim Racers Group F4 Championship also going to be running at the same time. You can catch all that action from the Ray Esports Club Racing League at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Sim Racers Group F4 Championship at 9:45. And here's the stuff that you can expect every single weekend here on SMB. The Formula V Weekend Warriors, you can catch that every single Saturday at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Formula Fords, like the race that you just saw, every single Sunday at 2:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got the action from the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors coming at you in about an hour's time here on SMB. Gives you a reason to stay tuned in. That's going to be a really good race. Round number 7 of that season going to be held down under at Winton, a track that I can't really make heads or tails of, but it's still fun, and I'm hoping not to see the aerial acrobatics that I saw the last time the SRFs ran there a couple of seasons ago. I think that was season 2 of 2024. Holy cow, I just aged myself in my experience here in this series, but the Formula Fords, round number 7 of this season 1 for 2025. That will just about do it. And so, for myself, Ron Maunz, Randall McGrew joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie doing a wonderful job working on all the cameras on the virtual production hauler, I say thank you also very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and stay tuned for the Spec Racer Fords later on today.